was enough. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to today's SJ Nation Live, better known as the Startup Junkie. Of course, I'm your host, AJ. And before we get started with everything, please do me a favor. Please subscribe to our channel. We're streaming live right now on Facebook as well as YouTube and in our Facebook private group, startupjunkie.io. Smash that like button and definitely be sure to click on the notification button to get content as we release it. Why? Because SJ Nation is all about providing you as an entrepreneur the roadmap to your success, helping you take your ideas and bringing them to reality, turning them into physical products and services. And that's what our show is all about. And today's topic is so important because I've experienced, how could I say, not only litigation, but loss of revenue, because I thought a handshake was enough. Well, let me tell you, a handshake is not enough. All right. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share a few incidents that I've actually had with our company, ThinkGrids, and how some people out there, and I'm not going to call any names, but some people out there, some companies out there still actually owe our company thousands of dollars. But I digress. I just want to share this information with you so you will understand why a handshake is not enough, why you must get a contract, and the importance of writing specific things in your contract so you do not do work outside of the scope. Remember that, outside of the scope of your, what your contract dictates. Okay. Now, let's get into it. First story I want to share with you is the radio station. Now, this is actually kind of interesting because the radio station is part of a church, right? And the person that actually hired our company, we actually came up with the idea. Before I tell you about the person that hired our company, we came up with the idea of, before we got into, before we were like deep into technology, we were into marketing, we were into sales. All right. And so basically what we did is we came up with the idea of looking for radio stations that did not have a strong sales force and basically selling, the advertising for them. Right. And so, an individual reached out to us on LinkedIn, and that individual said, hey, I understand that, you have this particular service and we would like to have a conversation with you. Right. Well, a couple of meetings in, we landed the contract. At least I thought we landed the contract. And because this particular radio station had actually been burned by prior management, they were a little, skittish in terms of, trusting an outside agency like ours to actually pick up the money for advertising sold. So, what typically how it works, let me explain this. When you run an agency, right, the client actually pays the agency in the agency's name, and the agency then pays the radio station, okay? Or, cable station or whatever media you're actually purchasing, right? But we weren't acting as an advertising agency. We were pretty much acting as, well, not pretty much, we were acting exactly as a sales force for those radio stations that were actually, I guess you can say didn't have enough labor to sell. Now, so we would allow the checks to be written directly to the radio station, and the radio station would pay us. But there became a problem. When the client would pay us, we would pay the radio station. The radio station would either delay paying us or delay or write us checks that didn't actually turn out to be good. And so when you have a sales force and you're promising, say, your sales guys like 20% of every sale and they would get paid immediately, that that created a problem within our infrastructure, within our organization. So, to make a long story short, we actually end up eating the revenue that we were supposed to make directly from the radio station by simply paying out of our own coffers, paying our salespeople. And at the end of the day, we didn't collect all of the money that we were supposed to collect from the radio station. Anybody who knows me, who knows exactly what that situation is, and what radio station it is, and it's a small station, not very powerful, but we were able to show them, because honestly, when we went in, they literally didn't have any processes. Okay, they didn't have any processes on what is called traffic flow. In other words, showing how commercials basically, the intake. In other words, intaking information from the client, giving it to the radio station producing a commercial content, and then playing that commercial on the air and tracking what has been played. I mean, literally, they were all over the freaking place. Okay, so we actually had to fix that, even though that was not our responsibility, before we can really start getting paid. So at the end of the day, they didn't have processes. At the end of the day, they did not follow the contract, because it was something that we did, and our mistake was this. We did not specify that all checks come to us first as an agency and then paying the radio station for the actual ads. And that's exactly how it should have been standard business of practice, but we did the opposite to make them feel comfortable to land the contract, and it was a huge mistake. So when I guess you could say the takeaway is, whenever there is a standard of practice, okay, and you have to bend it a little bit in order to make the client feel comfortable, where it actually takes the power away from you in terms of the amount of control you have over the revenue that's coming in, think about that, okay? Because at the end of the day, when someone else, in this particular case, the radio station, is actually holding the revenue, then, holding the check, so to speak, at the end of the day, we were at, it was their discretion to pay us whenever they felt like paying us, despite what we had in a contract. And it was at their discretion to basically tell us to piss off if they wanted to, which, by the way, they still owed us a lot of money, and we brought tons and tons of business. So the key takeaway, again, is if there's a standard business of practice, really think heavy before you change that standard business of practice. Okay? Now, hope that shared some insight, can help you with your business. Here's the second story. A few years back, our company, like I said, we were really into, marketing and advertising, right? We ran an advertising agency, and the advertising agency was not like what, you see a lot of people online doing. Hey, we have a social media marketing agency. No, we had a real advertising agency where we placed ads on cable and television. We shot the commercials. We did all of those things, right? And so we had a contract with an herbal company, right? And we actually started with the herbal company when the herbal company was a small cart in the mall. Eventually, they went from a small cart in the mall. We got them endorsed. We got local celebrities to endorse the product. They went from a small cart in the mall to actually blowing up to where they were able to literally franchise out. They had 5 stores. They're selling the product all over the country. And we had an old contract with them. So the lesson from this is be sure to always update your contracts to make sure that you're protected. And we had an old contract with them where we gave them a lot of leverage because it was when we first started out. and we really wanted to make sure we land the client to prove or to show that our company had some value, to create what is called a WTP, a willingness to pay, that a client would be willing to pay us for our services, and we accomplished that. So at the end of the day, what ended up happening was we decided not to, as typical in a contract. Remember, I said a standard practice. An agency will get what is called a monthly retainer. We didn't have a monthly retainer in our contract with this herbal company, nor did we have specific language that says, hey, look, or that said, hey, look, if you seek outside advice, or if you make any actions, or if you take any actions outside of our relationship that jeopardizes the relationship, that jeopardizes our reputation, then we have not only the right to sue, but we have the right to get the compensation that we would have gotten had we created the ads, had we placed the ads, in the market for you. Now, for those who don't know about advertising agencies, this is how they work. And I'm not talking about social media marketing agencies. I'm talking about real advertising agencies. So basically what happens is this. A client, express interest on promoting their product or service on a radio station, cable, television, etc. The agency will reach out for rates, right? And, like, what does it cost for a 60-second or a 30-second or a 15-second or some type of sponsorship on a radio station? Then once the agency receives the rates, the agency will then put together a proposal and the compelling reasons why, via research, that the client should actually run on the radio station or cable station, or not run on the radio station or cable station, because oftentimes clients think things are a good idea, but they're not necessarily a good idea, and can actually lead to a loss of money, a loss of income, a loss of just paying where you really shouldn't be paying. And that's specifically what happened in this case. So Spanish radio station comes into corporate headquarters of the Herbal Company, right? The Herbal Company is convinced by the salesperson of the Spanish station. They were a hell of a salesperson to actually advertise on Spanish radio. The problem with that was the Herbal Company did not have the infrastructure to take in Spanish calls, right? They could not service that particular demographic. However, because, now I know this is going to sound sacrilegious, but please listen to me. The account executive from the Spanish radio station actually prayed with the owner of the company. Both are very religious, right? Played on the emotions, got the guy to spend about $6,000. And, we found out and was like, hey, well, the client is not listening to us. I mean, it might be time for us to break up with this client and fire this client, because we see that as a complete waste of money. And guess what? We were right. It was a complete waste of money. So at the end of the day, what ended up happening was simply this. $6,000 worth of ads ran. Barely any calls or orders came in online, or any foot traffic to the store. And so basically the client wanted us to fix it. But we couldn't really fix something that we never created in the first place. But we did our best to actually accommodate the client. When the client didn't get any results from the $6,000 spend, they had nerve to have attitude with us. So we just simply fired them, because we said, hey, look, we don't take a retainer. We don't require you to always reach out to us. And these are standard practices, and they really should be. And here's why we're letting you as the client go. The client was offended. Client continued to call us and ask us our opinion. And that was one thing that we noticed, that the client literally would ask for advice all the time. But keep in mind, the reason why you pay a retainer is so you can call up your agency at any time and get advice. And truthfully, they were basically milking the relationship, taking advantage of the relationship. So we literally had to let them go. So here's the key takeaway from both stories. Number one, if there is a standard practice in place in a particular industry, think long and hard before changing that to accommodate a client to try to get the business. All right. But there are tried and true ways of doing things for a reason. Okay. There's a standard practice in an industry for a reason. And I'm not saying don't be an innovator and do things differently, but I'm saying if you do things differently, which is the second takeaway, be sure that you protect yourself from litigation. Make sure you protect your potential revenue that could be withheld from you, as in the case with us, as it relates to the radio station. And lastly, what you should do, which is number 3. If a client comes to you and starts to make demands before you've even landed them as a client, in terms of having you try to change up your processes, having you try to change anything about the way that you do business, think long and hard before you take on that client. So that is it today. Thank you for checking out SJ Nation Live. Again, be sure to check us out on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, Audible, as well as iHeart Media. And be sure to subscribe and like and click that notification bell to get, notifications every time we drop content. And be sure to check us out next Monday, streaming live at 9 p.m. Central right here on this social network. Until next time, I'm AJ, your host of the Startup Junkie, and I'm out. Take care.